Well, good morning, fellow gardeners. Welcome to the one and only Garden America show. We are back in studio. Brian Main, John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox. We trust you had a good week. The weekend is here. Let's have a good weekend and look forward to next week as well. I want to start off by saying we told you last week we'd be doing a remote. Did we say it was going to be at your house, John, last week? Did we give them the location?
John was here last week, was he?
I wasn't here.
Oh, that's right. You weren't.
We did.
Anyway, we are back in studio. It's my glitch. I have something to do today, but we are going to plan a remote live at John's house in the near future. In the meantime,
that was our book review
we are
show
here. The book review show.
in the library.
It
Keeps getting postponed.
See, you're going to love the library when we have the cameras in your library, John. It's going to look fantastic.
It is.
I think of a lot of mahogany. I think of John with a pipe, sitting in the corner in an easy chair.
What kind of wood is the cabinetry in your library? Because it's
alder, I think.
What?
Alder.
Alder? Yeah.
Alder wood.
It's very pretty.
You were going to go with gopher wood, right?
Gopher?
Yeah, but most of that had been
Noah's
used up in the Middle East.
Yes. A little Noah's Ark reference there. So anyway, we are here, and I want John to talk about today's subject.
Actually, I'm planning on making gopher wood because I've done the first part. I've got all the gophers.
So now you're going to make some wood. Hey, what's our show going to be about today, John? What do we want to discuss?
Well, we can discuss anything.
Right.
But the main thing I wanted to talk about was what is it time to do? What's it time to plant right now? And what should you not plant?
I think that what you should not plant is very important, right?
Well, it's important because I just don't understand. You go into the box stores, and there'll be a lot of things that there's no way you can plant those now.
Right.
What is the reason that they ship them to the stores and try to sell them to people? Because if you can't, go ahead. Well, what I'm saying is, if you're going to fail, for the most part, you're going to come back to the store, right?
Yeah, but they don't care.
Yeah.
Why would they care?
Or they give you another one?
They don't pay for it.
Here, you can fail again. Here's another one. Go out and fail
they
again.
just get credit from the suppliers.
Yeah. Yeah, and
But that's not true at your nursery, Tiger.
Definitely not. No, we definitely, carry things seasonally that match with whatever the time of year is and with the region. And that's the really hard part sometimes with box stores, isn't even so much the seasonal things, because I think most people that are somewhat gardeners know, it's really not the time of year that I should be planting this. I'm going to avoid buying it. But sometimes when you see those plants that you're like, oh, what is that? I haven't seen that before. I'm going to take it home and buy it. And then you realize this is nothing that should probably even be grown in my region, because they love plants that are showy, have flowers, but maybe they brought them in from some greenhouse. Maybe they brought them in some other parts of the country, and they don't realize that it's not going to do well where you live. It looks pretty now, but it doesn't going to.
So to the average Joe gardener, beware, because that's who they're preying upon.
Well, what about vegetables right now? There's zero chance that you can grow squash right now. So if you see squash plants, don't buy them.
Well, I think you like to say run.
Even tomatoes tomatoes and peppers.
Too early.
It's way too early.
Yeah.
And what happens is the plant, the pepper is way too early.
Right.
Way too early. The tomato is marginally early. But what happens is the plant just sits there anyways.
It's not warm enough.
Well, it just sits there for months anyways before it does anything. So people then get discouraged. Why isn't this growing? What's happening?
Speaking of that, John, was about a month ago when we put those seeds in when you were here with the rose hips?
Right.
I have nothing coming up yet. Am I still okay?
I planted my seeds a month before you, and I was looking yesterday, and they're just starting to come up.
Ooh.
So you have, but the weather's going to warm up. You still have, I would say probably 3 weeks.
And believe it or not,
start coming
because of the lack of sun in the patio, most everything is still moist from all the rain.
Yeah, right.
Leading to my next question. The hibiscus plant that you gave me several months ago, the hot chocolate, or what do we call that?
Maple sugar.
Maple sugar. Is that deciduous?
2 years ago? Wasn't it 2 years ago?
No. It was
this
recent.
was relatively new.
Is it deciduous? And I'll tell you why.
It's mild.
It looks,
it's mild.
Some of the branches, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, probably it was just too much water too much shade and too cold. But
it's still alive.
But they do come back.
Yeah,
they do come back.
It's viable.
So let it dry out.
Yeah. Okay.
Let it dry out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Lenore says she just planted her tomato seeds. Now, that's the kind of thing you should be doing if you're starting plants indoors.
Seeds, yeah.
You can go ahead and start pepper seeds indoors, tomato seeds.
Because, I mean, you're a month. Like you're saying, the rose hip seeds, that was a month ago.
Right.
So when you start something from seed, you're a month, maybe 6 weeks out from it actually being something that would be growing. And then now you're in a time of year where, it's time to move it outside. It'll start to grow. It's warmer, all that fun stuff. And it's not such a big deal.
Wednesday night in Fallbrook, it's predicted to be 33 degrees.
Yeah. And that is the thing you do have to be careful with seeds, right? Is because those little seed starts, that one night of really cold temperatures, if they're outside, like you mentioned, indoors.
Right.
If they're outside, ooh.
Well, it depends on what they are. If you have cool season things germinating like African daisies or Iceland poppies, California poppies, the cold doesn't bother them at all.
Well, the word Iceland kind of is a giveaway.
It's so funny. I follow a group on Facebook, San Diego Gardeners, and there was a woman that posted a picture of a beautiful weeded blank hillside. And she had said, it's so hard because my gardener went through and weeded this hillside, but it was full of California poppy starts.
Oh, no.
I think we need to answer a question.
All right.
Because it's the topic we're speaking of with tomatoes. Do you see that on there, John?
The one that just came through?
John and Bonnie?
John wants to know, he said tomatoes at Rogers Gardens, March 2nd.
Tomato Mania.
Tomato Mania, right.
Tomato Mania. And they send out a notice to order tomatoes ahead of time to be picked up on that date. Should I cancel my order? Or will the first week in March be okay to plant seedlings? Depends where you are, but normally once we get to March, you're okay. Mid-March to late March is actually better. You're having Tomato Mania at your place, right?
Yeah, in a week or two. And yeah, I mean, that's what you just say is kind of, borderline in the sense of a lot of coastal areas where it's really mild,
Right.
Like I say, they're gonna sit there for a while,
Right.
And they're not gonna exactly grow, but
But that's a good point, the microclimates, because you are in a much warmer area for absolute colds than Fallbrook is,
and so is Rogers Garden.
Right.
So but like you mentioned, if you were in the eastern parts of San Diego or eastern parts of Los Angeles, then you have to be more careful because it's going to get colder than the coastal areas. And with these tomato starts, if you put them in the ground, you run a little bit more risk. Where when they're in a pot, you can protect them, you can move them, and all that.
You got more control.
Yeah.
I like what Gina says, John. We're in the spring of deception.
Does that remind you of a song?
Spring of deception?
Yeah.
It does.
Eve of Destruction.
Eve of Destruction, yeah.
Right.
I'm not going to get tricked into planting anything.
No.
And that's true. The hot, the cold, it looks good. The snow melts.
She's
the sun
in
is
Idaho,
out.
though.
Yeah, I know. But getting back to the microclimates and things like that, don't be tricked in because it's been warm for a week.
Right.
I mean, we were in the 70s last day or so.
Okay.
78?
On Thursday evening, I took the kids to a park over by Fiesta Island.
It was
Mission
beautiful,
Bay.
wasn't it?
It was. I was in shorts and a t-shirt at 6:30 p.m.
You want to post those on our Facebook page?
Yeah.
Those pictures?
But I mean, it was Santa Ana wind kind of weather, like real warm.
Yeah.
And like John just mentioned, and now we're going to go to freezing temperatures here in a few days.
Hey, let's get your quote of the week, John, before the first break.
I think I'm going to write an article called "Spring of Deception."
That's a good one.
That's a
very
great
good.
title.
Gina, way to go. That's great. That could even be a title to a book.
It could be. The Winter of Our Discontent was by John Steinbeck.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We're talking about things to plant now and what not to plant and about starting seeds, right? So I found this quote from George Washington. And he said, bad seed is a robbery of the worst kind. For your pocketbook not only suffers by it, but your preparations are lost, and a season passes away unimproved.
Now, how did he have time to write that quote and, try to start a country?
It was in between bloodlettings, I believe.
Oh, that makes sense. So we're going to take a break. This is our first break of the show, a break for our good friends on Biz Talk Radio and our many sponsors. For those of us on Facebook, it'll be a shorter break. We're going to come back and answer your questions, talk about what to plant, and maybe in some cases, more importantly, what not to plant this time of the year. So do stay with us. Brian Main, John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox. Welcome to the show. Taking a break. This is Garden America. All right, we are back. It is good to be back here in the studio. Again, we are planning maybe when the weather warms up just a little bit, doing a live remote at John's house. We also have plans sometime, who knows, back at the nursery, Tiger's Nursery. We like to get out of the studio, but it's fun to have John back in the studio as he was. What was your part in the auction last week, John? Were you just an observer or?
The auction was a dismal failure.
Gosh, I hate to hear that.
Well, the reason they had 300 roses that never showed up. They were
Caught in
mailed.
traffic, or what?
They were mailed from a certified nursery in Texas. Was donating them to the auction, and they were supposed to have arrived the day before, and they didn't arrive. They're there now, and I think they're going to do an online auction. I'm not really sure how that's going to do, but with 300 roses missing, there really wasn't much to choose from.
That's a shame.
I know. I only got 2.
What variety?
Got Beautiful Anne, which is a Paul Barden miniature, and one other. But it's always nice to see rose people
Right,
and
just to
talk
get
to
together,
people. Yeah,
right.
it was fun. I had a good time. Rick in Idaho wants to know. Star Idaho wants to know how you tell if you've got a good soil. And I would say the number one way of telling would be worms.
Yeah.
If you've got worms in your soil,
Got a great soil.
You have a healthy soil, right? No worms, you got trouble.
And it tells you a number of things. Number one is that it has life in it.
A lot of
right?
good biology, bacteria.
And that's an important thing. We talk about mycorrhizae. We talk about all kinds of great fungus. We talk about nutrients. So it tells you there's life. But number two is it tells you there's organic material because worms, that's how they live.
Right.
They have to eat things to be able to live. And if you just have straight sand or straight clay or, just no soil with any kind of organic material, worms can't survive in that
Right.
area. So, you need to know that you have to amend it to some degree. But yeah, definitely I would say that's a big thing. If you see worms in your soil, that's a good start.
I find worms in my pots all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're pretty big. Maybe they're snakes. I don't know.
Do you have any in your apples? That's not a good sign.
That is not a good sign. No, right?
What's another thing you think for telling you have good soil?
Is there a way to test your? I mean, you could test your soil,
Yeah.
right, to see if it has all the nutrients and.
There's soil tests out there.
There are. I never test my soil. You just work with it.
Yeah.
You stick your finger in the soil, though, right?
No.
Yeah, you do. Don't you?
Only when if you got a pot and you want to see if you should water
Right, if
something.
you should water it, exactly.
Yeah. Tiger, by the way, is working out at my house, putting in irrigation and helping me with the landscaping. And I have to tell you, if you're in San Diego and you need any landscaping work done or landscape maintenance, make sure you call Tiger.
Did he pay for this ad?
Yeah.
No, he didn't. But I'll tell you that I'm so impressed with. I'm impressed with him every week, right, when we come
Right.
here. But he's an excellent businessman.
We call these live ad libs. talent endorsed ad libs on
Thanks,
the air
John.
in the business.
Well, it's true. It's true. And he has great ideas. And, I have drainage coming off the pipes, and we had to dig holes, and it's going out to the hill. And on his own, he says, hey, you've got a pile of rocks over there. Is it all right if we take those rocks and put them where the pipe's coming out so that when it drains, it's not going to wash away the hill? Nobody else would have thought of that.
I thought he was going to say, hey, I could put these rocks up here and it would look very nice. It would add to your landscaping. You could put some decorative rocks here. But we're talking practicality.
John's
They're
not
not
much
those-
into a rock garden.
They're not those size rocks. I like rocks, though. Big rocks. They're hard to move.
Yeah. You move them once and then that's it.
Right. Carla says, speaking of tomato seeds, Tiger, which variety of rootstock seeds did you use? Did you try several kinds? Will you sell grafted tomatoes again this year?
Oh, I think John's going to answer that question. No, we're not doing grafted tomatoes this year. But, John, I think, would answer the question for rootstock.
The rootstock we used was called Imperador on the Mighty Tomatoes. And they used to be grafted in Vista, and they stopped grafting this year.
Yeah.
So
What's happening to the grafting industry? It seems like we're losing interest.
they're cleaning the whole thing up. No more graft.
Graft.
We had to find someone new to graft, so they're being grafted in North Carolina, and shipping out. And Tiger wasn't able to get any this year, right?
Right.
Maybe next year.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Try again.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a.
Plus,
just
Tiger
late
was
start.
supplying Gardener
Supply.
Supply, and this year they weren't able to get together and order
Right.
soon enough.
Yeah. But yeah, so, that's definitely something that we hope would come back in the sense of, because it does produce great plants and there's a lot of benefits to it.
Now, what did you say the rootstock came from, John?
The rootstock was called Imperador.
And that is a variety. What is that?
It's a rootstock variety of tomato
tomato.
that's resistant to diseases.
Right.
Yeah,
and the reason I asked
Soil diseases.
this question is,
And also really vigorous.
Yeah.
so is that a tomato we can buy?
No, why would you want it?
It's not
just rootstock.
It's not a good tomato for eating or
Right.
anything like
That was my
It's more
question
just
because I'm
growing.
thinking, oh, just buy this. It's disease resistant.
Well, you could buy it and graft onto it yourself if you
But like
wanted
Tiger
to.
says, it's good for grafting,
Yeah.
not for eating.
It's not difficult to graft
Because I've
a
never heard
tomato.
of it. I've never heard of that. It isn't
It's
difficult
not
at all.
difficult at all. All you need is a grafting clip to hold it together, and plant your tomato seeds and your rootstock seeds at the same time.
Do you sense a video coming about this? A short little video? Why not?
Yeah,
we could do one.
Get
I've got
Daniel.
some clips at home.
Are you listening, Daniel? I think we have our first video, especially for this time of the season. It would be very timely.
Yeah.
Could do that.
How to graft a tomato. You say it's easy.
You know what I was talking about? It's kind of funny, I think. We were talking about how much I respected Tiger as a businessman and as a person and everything that he's doing.
However,
Gina says, God bless you, Tiger.
Daniel says okay.
Yeah.
And we want to give credit to Daniel. He's our IT guy. He set up our website. He takes our videos, did a great job at the auction this year.
He did.
And he's responsible for the show growing on
Yeah.
various platforms. Alexa, iHeartMedia, BizTalk Radio in terms of our podcast.
You were
Don't
just playing it in your car.
Right. Don't say the A word over the air
Oh,
because everybody's.
yeah. Alexa, play
Oh,
Garden
that's
America
right.
Radio.
Yeah. Exactly.
That
Sorry
and the
about
S word.
that. Yeah.
Hey,
We got a break in about a minute. Go ahead, John.
I
We're
was
good.
just going to say that Rick Tiger was asking what kind of soil amendments that you
Yeah.
sell the most of.
So, we use bagged products that are a combination of things. And so there's obviously the different manures, castings, fir barks in them. So it's just blends, we were just talking about soils and it's just good to have a balance, not too much steer, not too much chicken. You just want a good balance in your soil because anything too much is going to open yourself up for those problems. So
We're going to take a break, and Daniel says I'm the web guy. He's our web guy. Thank you, Daniel. Anyway, we've got messages for our friends on BizTalk Radio. We're coming back very soon. Happy weekend, Brian Main, Tiger Palafox, John Begnasco. Keep those questions and comments coming here on Garden America. Okay, we are back. It is Garden America, obviously. Tell your friends, your family, bring somebody else into the fold if they haven't watched or listened to the show. Those on Biz Talk Radio want to catch us live every weekend, Saturday morning, starting at 8 on the West Coast. 11 o'clock Eastern Time Zone. Go to our Facebook page, Garden America Radio Show. Tune in, take part. I know what you were thinking, John. Tune in, turn off, drop out. What did he say?
What?
It's Timothy Leary.
Timothy Leary.
Yeah.
Quote. What was the exact quote? He was a professor who was encouraging young people back in the 60s to do a lot of drugs.
Yeah, turn on was part of it, and drop out was the end
Right,
of it.
and there was something
There's
in the
one
middle.
other, yeah.
Yeah, Timothy Leary. Anyway.
John says that for whatever reason he's able to plant grafted tomatoes in soil with nematodes. Yeah, grafted tomatoes, most tomato rootstocks anyway, are resistant to nematodes, Fusarium blight, and verticillium wilt. So that's one of the main reasons. Plus, they're so vigorous that you can double your crop.
Yeah. Then, and then, people will say, oh, well, for the cherry tomatoes or, that's not so important. But I mean, the big benefit were like the Thornburns terracotta,
right.
or, Big Beef, or some of these other tomatoes that they were good producers of the larger size tomato, but you'd only get one or two tomatoes at a time off of it.
That was like you and I last year. We planted that bigger tomato.
Right.
What was the variety? But I got like two, I think, the whole season.
Wasn't the terracotta one. It was a different one. I can't remember
right.
what it is off the
But
top of my
we
head.
both had the same experience.
Yeah. And, when you're looking at those kinds of fruit, yeah, the grafted is way better because you can get a lot more off of the plant. I'm growing out for Tomato Mania, some mail order plants, and I'm starting them from seed this year. And it's pretty interesting, kind of like this whole process of starting from seed and getting them going. Last time I got them from Plug Connection and just planted them up and finished them off. But it's kind of interesting. Your quote from George Washington about bad seed kind of made me think about how far we've come along with, seeds that you used to be able to get. What would be a good, like for a home gardener, John, a good germination rate? Maybe, 60% of
I would say you should be up around 80% if you've got good seed.
But
adding 800
seed companies now, they're a lot better at sending out great viable seed.
Some are really bad.
Yeah.
Usually the cheaper the seed, the worse quality it is.
Yeah.
You'll even find a percentage of weed seed in some of those cheap seeds. Yeah. I'd recommend there's some good seed companies out there. Baker Creek is probably who I'd go to first. And they did a nice thing, by the way, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday, that all their seed sales went to the earthquake victims in Turkey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How about that?
So it was a one day only. I wish they would have had it today. We could have told people about it. Yeah.
You see Land's question?
He was talking about whitewashing fig trees. Do you avoid painting over the buds? I assume he's talking about whitewashing for sunburn.
For sunburn.
And you don't have to worry about painting over the buds. The buds just break right through it.
Yeah.
And then Carla wants us to spell the name of the rootstock. Yeah. So Emperador is EMPERADOR.
Okay, now please use that in a sentence.
Emperador penguin.
Right.
Um,
The Chinese people used to worship imperadors in the, that's emperors, I guess,
That was
not
good.
imperadors.
Like the emperor penguin.
yeah.
Uh,
But oh, something else that's kind of interesting in genetics. I sent you that article from Lance Walheim, John, about the
I meant to answer you
Meyer
on
lemon.
that too, and I forgot.
Yeah, about the Meyer lemon. And I mean, this is so cool with genetics nowadays. And what do you? The only reason why anybody studies not botany, taxonomy is just to be able to correct people later on. But with genetic testing in plants, they were able to establish that the Meyer lemon, which we thought was a cross between a lemon and a mandarin, was a cross between a lemon and an orange. And it's just kind of neat to be able to kind of go back and find out the genetics in plants and where they kind of came from and trace the roots a little bit. But yeah, so Lance Walheim, thank you for sharing that info with us.
Do you know the Meyer lemon was discovered by someone who used to work for Armstrong Nurseries?
I remember. Didn't we during one of our little history spots we focused on him, and I think
We might have, and didn't we? We interviewed someone who wrote the book on Meyer lemon.
Yeah,
with recipes and things.
Yeah.
But Frank Meyer, who was a plant explorer, is the one who discovered the Meyer lemon.
Yeah.
And in like 1915 or something, he worked for Frank's Nurseries for one season, something like that.
One season.
Yeah.
Just to.
I said Frank's, I meant Armstrong's.
Frank's is where you used to work in Michigan, right?
And Frank's Nursery had nothing to do with Frank Meyer.
And the Meyer lemon has nothing to do with Meyer Lansky either.
No, that's true. But it does have something to do with Frank Meyer.
Oh.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Carla says she's having trouble grafting in the past. The biggest thing is if you've got a grafting clip is matching up the two cuts,
so
right?
that it's even.
And the way that you do that, I don't know if I can
In
explain
other words,
this.
John,
but,
no spillover, right? It's got to be right.
right, it's got to be perfect.
Okay.
But the way to do it is to lay your rootstock seedling going one direction, and then right next to it, parallel but going the other direction, your top seedling. And then take a razor blade and make an angled cut.
Over both of them.
Over both of them. So when you take those two pieces and you slip them into the clip, they're going to match perfectly.
Yeah.
Don't cut one and then the other. Because
Right.
it'll be
Right.
off one way or the other.
Yeah, so it'll be perfect that way. And of course, you want to make sure that as close as you can eye it, that the diameters of the stem are similar.
And do you have to keep that?
Then you have to have 100% humidity for a few days.
I was
right?
going to say, then you
Wow.
have to keep that that cut humid, damp, and the clip doesn't necessarily do that. So you almost have to put it in like some kind of like a little dome greenhouse or anything.
Right. Commercially, they put them
In a room
in
that's-
healing chambers
Yeah.
that there's a constant humidity
In the air.
Oh,
in the
well,
air.
good. We have a healing chamber. That'll work.
There you go.
Yeah, perfect. Now I know what to do with that room.
Yeah, you just for years.
But like Tiger says, use a plastic bag. Just
Yeah.
put
yeah,
it in there
okay.
and for the first few days. Now,
You say only days? It only requires how many?
well, this is interesting because 10 seconds after you've clipped those together,
They
the
start
top
to heal.
the top of the plant's able to take moisture up through the roots.
Whoa, 10 seconds.
10 seconds later.
Jeez.
So, but it takes about 3 or 4 days for that to heal, that it's okay to come out of that healing chamber. And then you still want to keep the area relatively moist, but you don't have to have 100%
I
humidity.
can imagine giving a tour of your house. It's our bedroom, dining room. Oh, this is our healing chamber.
Healing chamber.
Then you need, and then 2 weeks later, the plant's ready to go in the ground.
Wow.
It sounds simple.
So
You just have
fast.
to make sure you've got the right conditions, the right steps.
Right. And then you've got to remember not to bury the graft because, tomatoes root all along the stem. And if you bury above the graft, it's going to root
It's
there.
the first thing I learned when we talked about this.
Yeah, and you lose all the advantage of the graft.
Well,
So then now you will get disease, right?
Right.
Right.
what would you say? Because when the Mighty Tomatoes came in, they were grafted, and they were grafted only maybe maybe an inch above the soil line, maybe, right?
Well, here's the other problem with grafting. Since Carla said we gave her such great tips, the other thing is that you want to graft below the cotyledon. So when a tomato seed germinates, you have those first two cotyledons, they're not true leaves,
Right.
open up. If you graft above that, then the tomato can sucker.
Oh, okay.
If you graft below it, it can't.
Okay.
So you have the top and the rootstock completely different.
And so, that I was going to ask, I mean, I know a lot of it depends on where you can clip and everything, but since you want to
But that's the reason you can't graft
too high.
Right.
Is because potentially you'd be thinking, oh, my rootstock, I can bury it deep and leave the graft high.
Right.
But if, like you're saying, if you graft above that cotyledon,
Right.
You can get
you
suckers.
can get sucker.
That's why video would be very good to show all
And
this.
I know that Imperador obviously is the ideal rootstock for grafting, but I mean, that's probably not available for everyone, and might be a little bit difficult to find seed.
Well, Rick just pointed out that Johnny's Selected Seeds got all the supplies for grafting and the rootstock seeds.
But I mean, you could find a good nematode-resistant other seed if you wanted to.
We got to take a break.
There are other ones out there, and you can easily find those and graft on that too.
Running a little long, so I'm going to take a break for our friends on Biz Talk Radio. Next segment will be the last segment of your hour number one. So do stay with us. A lot of great questions, comments for those on Facebook. Keep them coming as Garden America takes a break for our friends on Biz Talk Radio. Back after these messages. Back with Garden America. For those on Biz Talk Radio tuned in, this is the final segment. News coming up top of the hour. We're back at 6 minutes after. We hope and trust your market carries both hours, or at least hour one or hour number two. Been talking about a lot of things this morning, tomatoes, what to plant, what not to plant, and a lot of good questions, comments on Facebook.
Yeah, for some reason we've gotten
Kind of
off on
drifted.
grafting and
Well,
talking
that's okay,
a lot
because
about grafting.
that's where our listeners and viewers took us.
Right. So I wanted to just continue that further because Tiger just mentioned that you could graft onto other tomatoes. And one of the things that we investigated was a line of tomatoes we were going to call selfies.
Because they were able to hold a camera?
No, because we were going to cut the tomato on an angle and then put it right back together. And research showed that you could increase production by 30%.
So what does that do to the plant when you...
Makes a stronger joint?
No, it just shocks it somehow.
Really?
Okay.
And so...
Because you know how they
But
say...
the reason I brought that up is because you were saying you could graft onto different rootstocks.
Yeah.
Well, you can, but to get, to double your crop, you need a really strong rootstock. Yeah, vigorous. And you could graft onto like Celebrity, right, is a good disease-resistant rootstock, but you're not going to get the increased production, except a little bit you will.
Yeah. I wonder, because you know how they say when you break a bone in the human body,
Right.
that spot almost never breaks again because it heals so much stronger. That's probably like what happens is the tomato gets broken right there, it gets put back together, and then all that energy going into fixing that makes it stronger.
I think the tomato says, wow, I better start producing. Or this is going to
people are
happen to me
cutting me
again. Someone's going to cut me up again. I better produce. And you're right about the bone thing. It's stronger. Same thing. Yeah, it broke once. I better make sure I don't break again.
Also this talk of grafting and tomatoes started me thinking, we were talking about obviously what not to plant right now. It's still cold for a lot of stuff, but
Marigolds. Do not plant marigolds.
do not plant marigolds. But what are the things that are going into the vegetable garden right now straight from seed? Like what would you say a good seed to just go straight in the garden? Because we talked about tomatoes, you should start them indoor. Peppers, you're going to start indoor. Those kinds of things start indoors because it still gets cold.
Well, you could have planted earlier your winter crops, but things you could still plant now and get a crop would probably be peas
Okay.
and then lettuces.
Yeah.
Lettuce loves cool weather, so you can do that. And then some of the root crops, radishes, you can plant almost all year except for the real hot part of the year. Radishes, carrots.
Carrots.
I think
Things
I
like
should
that.
try radishes. They grow fast.
Sunflower seeds. You should do
And-
sunflower seeds.
And you would be shocked at radishes in the sense of there's a lot of varieties out there that have very different flavors. And people don't think about it.
We
People
have
think
one
about-
one flavor. We
yeah,
think
people
of.
think radish and they just think, oh, it tastes like this. But there's a lot of radishes. Some are very spicy. Some are a little bit more mild. And so it's fun to see the varieties out there.
I'd go for a spicy radish.
Yeah, there are some that are very
French
spicy.
breakfast.
Yeah.
French breakfast.
It's the name of a radish.
Yeah.
Oh my little spicy radish. French breakfast.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
kind of an elongated one. If you want to get kids to eat radishes,
East Raven.
we've talked about this before. The thing to do is to get a little bowl, slice up the radishes, and put salt and olive oil on
Yep,
them.
we did talk about that. And I went home and did that one time after you
Did you
mentioned
like it?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah.
You would think that isn't something kids would like, but they almost always do.
But with kids also, beets, carrots, and radishes, there's a lot of different fun colors too that they don't ever see. So it kind
Right.
of blows their mind.
Kids don't seem to like beets.
No, but they're
Neither-
fun.
neither
They're
does
fun
Brian.
to cut up. Well, they're fun to cut up and look at.
I remember going into a restaurant in Columbus one time and got an heirloom beet salad.
Ooh.
And
It actually said on the menu, heirloom beet salad.
Heirloom beet salad. It was one of the best things I've ever had. And it was like Tiger's saying, all the different colors of beets. You got
Yeah.
golden beets, the one that looks like a bullseye.
Yeah, the lines.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't really taste much.
Really?
I
No,
don't.
Beets are really sweet.
Yeah,
No, I
really
don't-
sweet.
Got a great flavor.
Unless I'm, haven't had the right one, it's not much of a taste.
and it
Sugar
was,
beets.
do you-
You'd
do you-
like sugar beets.
Do you remember at all the dressing? Because a lot of times they'll just do a like a balsamic vinegar, but like a real balsamic vinegar. You know, the ones that kind of more syrupy
Yeah.
balsamic vinegar on that beet salad, and that's good.
I think I remember it being kind of a raspberry vinaigrette,
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
which would be good.
Which is funny for people too, because a lot of people think balsamic vinegar and they think more that kind of more watery, drizzly balsamic vinegar, but you don't realize that balsamic vinegar is actually more syrupy.
Do you sell sun sugar tomatoes at your nursery?
Yeah.
That's what I want to do this year. The last time I had one was 10 years ago with you,
Really?
John.
Sugar?
I have
I
not
thought you
had one
planted
since.
those every year.
No,
Really?
no, but I want to get some from you. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
little.
Oh yeah, they're delicious.
Yeah, you pop them like grapes or raisins.
What's the real high sugar content one?
There's another one,
that
John, we
always
talked about.
about.
Sweet aperitif.
Sweet aperitif. Yeah. That's
30% sweeter than sun sugar.
Yeah, that's the.
Sweet aperitif.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about that? You have those?
Yep.
Look at that. I'm going to keep asking questions till he says, nope,
Nope.
not that one.
Not that one. Yeah.
We're caught up. I think we're caught up, right?
I think.
Well,
Best tasting avocado from Jerry, right?
Ooh.
that's a question.
Ooh, that
Prior to that, Veronica said that roasted beets are yum.
Roasted. Mm.
Huh.
I don't think. Yeah, I mean, I've had cooked beets. I don't know if I've had roasted.
Best tasting avocado, there's several, right?
Loaded question.
I would say Gem is one of the best, and Reed. Those are probably two of my favorite. Haas is probably the best all around, right?
All around.
You can get those anywhere. But Reed and Gem are harder to find, and they're huge. They're almost double the size of a.
And describe why you think that they're better tasting.
And you have less than a minute, by the way.
That's a good question, and they're better tasting because I think of the oil content, and they've a great nutty flavor.
Yeah.
If you were in Florida, you would say, "Oh, that's a horrible avocado," because they like watery avocados.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to take a break because we have news coming up on Biz Talk Radio, and we are back at 6 minutes after. For the rest of us or the rest of you on Facebook Live, keep those questions coming. Yeah, we talked about the best tasting avocado. Carla is back. Marguerite. So we're going to get to those questions, those comments sooner than later. Those on Biz Talk Radio, it is news, and we're back at 6 minutes after. Do stay with us. Happy weekend. This is Garden America. All right, welcome back to the show. If you are tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, this is the beginning of hour number 2. You did miss some things in hour 1 if you weren't tuned in or your market doesn't carry our show, but you are going to be caught up in just a very few minutes here talking about what to plant, what not to plant. In many cases already talking about tomatoes, grafted tomatoes, avocados. So this show is going in many, many different directions because you have taken us there.
And, I was thinking about other things not to plant, and I was trying to stray away from vegetables a little bit and edibles because we've been talking a lot about that, and some people are more interested in the flowers. And, that's the other thing you do have to be careful with right now also as you enter this time of year, because there are some places that are going to release series of flowers. John just mentioned marigolds, petunias,
Petunias may be okay depending on what you are, especially inland, like if you're in Palm Springs, this is petunia season. Yeah.
But I mean, you have to be careful because we are on that cusp of seasonal changes, right?
Right, sure.
We are coming, kind of tail end of winter, about to break into spring. And with flowers, a little bit different than vegetables. The one hard part with the flowers is obviously you want them to bloom and grow, but the other thing is like disease and bugs. And a lot of times seasonally they grow during certain times of year because they don't have such a big problem with bugs or disease. And so, we mentioned the petunias, and petunias during this time of year, they'll get mildew and things because of the moisture and the humidity. So John mentioned, Palm Springs is very dry out there, which is nice, and that's why they'll grow so well. And it's not so much the cold, it's more like the dryness, that they will enjoy. So, flowers wise, you want to make sure that you're planting according to season. And I also want to reiterate this, that if you're kind of it's fun to go in the nursery and find things that are in bloom and you can see them. But again, it's better to go in and look for things that are growing or budded up, because it's going to give you the longer growth season. And again, we talked about this before, where was it Australia you mentioned that they don't grow anything that have flowers on it? I can't remember.
New Zealand, when I was in New Zealand,
yeah.
right.
If
you bought a color pack, there was no color except green.
And
as
it
soon
was
as
blooming,
it bloomed, they threw it out.
Yeah. And that's kind of to some degree what you want to be well versed in what you're buying, so that way you know what it's going to look like. Maybe there's a picture attached to it so you can see the flower, but you don't want something already bloomed out. So
that's why they threw them away, because it's too late to sell.
Yeah, and they do have a life cycle, and they'll continue to bloom through their season.
It's not really too late. It's just that they do much better if they can root in the ground and then, grow and then put out flowers.
Right.
Yeah. You get a lot more flowers that way.
And then, with orchids, Phalaenopsis, the moth orchid, those are the ones that have the lobed flowers. You see them in every grocery store and, chain store. They always have a series of blooms, on it. You'll have maybe 8 or 9 flowers on there. Don't ever buy the one that has 8 or 9 flowers. Buy the one that has 1 or 2 flowers and then 6 or 7 buds kind of towards the end of it, because that one is going to last you months versus the one that has the 8 or 9 flowers is going to last you weeks. So
you want to make sure that at the end of that flower spikes, there's some buds that haven't opened.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, if they're fully open all the way to there, it's not going to last as long. Carla says that she has more questions on beets. Should she wait?
No, ask
No,
away,
not at
Carla,
all.
please.
Unless she meant, should I wait to plant?
And you know why?
Obviously-
You know why she shouldn't wait, John? Because the beat goes on.
Ah,
And obviously, she never watched the show The Office, right? Because otherwise, she would know everything about beets.
Exactly.
Dwight was a beet farmer on The Office.
Beat farmer.
Tiger doesn't even know your reference to The Beat Goes On.
Sure he
That
does.
was
Sonny,
a beat-
Sonny and Cher.
Oh yeah, I knew it was an old
goes on.
song or
Boom,
something.
An old song or something.
An old song or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Something in the last century.
The Beatles.
Do you remember?
There's a lot of truth to that, by the way. The beat of a song, beat tolls. That's why.
Do you remember the first name of Sonny and Cher? The first group they were in. What was it called before Sonny and Cher?
Oh, yes. Oh, John, good one.
Yeah, Caesar and Cleopatra.
Caesar and Cleo. What they call it, Caesar and Cleo. But yeah,
Oh, was it
Caesar-
Cleo?
Wait a minute.
Cleo, but
So before Sonny and Cher,
Caesar and
it
Cleo,
was Caesar
or Caesar and Cleopatra. As
Right.
John
Really?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
They didn't have any big hits as
No.
that group.
You know, there was a big age difference between them. She came out of El Centro, California, and I think met up when she was 16.
Really?
And he was in his late 20s.
Ran into a tree.
Yeah, snow skiing.
Yeah.
Poor
He was
Sonny.
the mayor of Palm Springs. Do you
I
remember
told you
that?
my story. My son and I were driving, I don't know, someplace back east. We're stopped in Palm Springs, and I'm looking for a little convenience store. And on all these winding roads, and it's like, oh, there it is.
All these winding roads.
Yeah,
There's
to
one
get
road
there.
in Palm Springs.
No, well, to get there off the freeway, there's like a subdivision.
Yeah.
So I go in there and I said to the lady, I want some, whatever, peanuts and, Coke or whatever. And I said, my gosh, you're hard to get to. She stood up and says, well, you can thank Sonny Bono for that mess. Here's what he did to our little town here.
goodness.
I'm like, whoa. And then I got 5 minutes on what he did with the roads and everything. I'll never forget that. You can thank Sonny Bono for that mess.
Hey, Rick wants to know if grafted vegetables would give gardeners an advantage in areas with shorter growing seasons. To some extent, grafted vegetables help plants resist environmental factors. So yes, to some extent, but I would say the majority of the influence would be from the top part of the tomato. So if you have a short season tomato, you're going to get more fruit than you would in area with
Well, no, we talk about this because
What-
we
what
talk
am I
about
trying
coastal.
to say?
Well, I
Go
think
ahead,
I think
Tiger.
you talk about coastal tomatoes,
Right.
Areas where
cool season tomatoes.
cool
I think
season,
Rick's
and it's
talking
because
about
they
though.
need short season,
Right.
Where if you tried to plant a long season tomato, something that needed
Right.
more days, it wouldn't grow in that area because they don't have that time window to do
Right.
that.
I was thinking of my little one-panel cartoons when you were talking about short-season tomatoes. It's the picture is like by a pool, and there's a tomato with sunglasses on. It's definitely a guy, and he's relaxing. And there's two female tomatoes off to the side whispering, and the one says to the other, "You don't want to talk to him. He's a short-season tomato.
It's hilarious.
Don't waste your time with him. He's a short-season
wow.
tomato."
What I was trying
what
to
were you
think
trying
of,
to say?
well, I was trying to think of Rick being in Idaho, and short season there is because it jumps to the sun when it's summer. It's
Yeah.
110 degrees,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So tomatoes won't produce under those conditions, and grafted tomatoes are more resistant to heat stress and cold stress. So it would help somewhat. Yes.
So what's the perfect?
But I would still
ahead.
try to get a short season tomato.
So for the most
regardless
part,
of your cartoon.
what's the temperature range, roughly?
That tomatoes grow in.
Yeah,
They usually won't set fruit unless you have a cool season tomato, which some of them like subarctic, will produce when the temperatures are in the 30s. But a normal tomato, let's just say the average tomato, will not set fruit until nighttime temperatures are in the 60s and daytime temperatures are below 90.
that sounds kind of San Diego-ish.
Yeah, there's a lot of areas that are like that almost year round. Yeah.
Do you remember, did you ever drive north on the 5 past Camp Pendleton?
Yes.
Big tomato
And
field.
go there a certain time of the year and you would smell all the pig manure from the tomato fields. They plant tomatoes. I don't think they plant there anymore, do they?
Nothing.
I don't
nothing.
remember. Yeah.
But for years, they grew tomatoes right there.
But even bigger than that is if you go along the 78. So that's the freeway that goes from the 5 to the 15.
Right, sure.
In that northern sector.
Uh-huh.
You'll drive along and just covered with hills and hills for miles of tomatoes up there. And it's amazing to see
how well they do because the temperatures.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break here on Biz Talk Radio.
Got a lot of questions to catch up on.
Yes, Facebook Live is really heating up, so keep it going, keep it coming. You are tuned in to Garden America. For those that are brand new or maybe just kind of stumbled upon us, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Those on Biz Talk Radio. We're going to take a break back after these messages for our friends on Biz Talk Radio. Stay with us. Hey there, welcome back. If you just tuned in, this is Garden America. Thank you for those that have been with us since the get-go. It's 6 minutes after the hour. Remember, 8 o'clock on the West Coast, 11 o'clock a.m. on the East Coast. Those on Biz Talk Radio, pre-recorded show. Go to our website, gardenamerica.com. Check it out. Also, our Facebook page. That's where you are right now if you're tuned in on Facebook. We've got our shows lined up there. We have Alexa. We have our YouTube channel, John, Garden America Radio Show. What's that?
You said the A word again.
I have to say it every now and then.
Oh,
and then also the iHeart platform for our podcast as well. You can find us just about anywhere. So thank you for tuning in as we continue with yet another fast-paced, hard-hitting, award-winning show.
Okay. Somebody has John wants to know if there's such a thing as a drought-resistant geranium.
Yeah.
Yes.
Assuming we're talking about pelargoniums.
I was going to say, no, there's plenty of them.
Pelargoniums come from South Africa. So the South African species are all drought resistant, and the regular commercial pelargoniums are somewhat drought resistant, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if we're talking geraniums, also real geraniums, a lot of those are drought resistant too.
Are they?
I mean, you know, there's that geranium matarens, the kind of like tuber.
Right.
That one used to grow out in Alpine easily. You know, I mean, I don't know if it's known to be drought resistant, but
that's the one that puts out the huge flower head,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like this big around.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean,
How big is that, Brian?
Yeah, bigger than a beach ball. Two or three beach
balls
Yeah.
is what that is.
So I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like geraniums are drought resistant in a lot of ways in a plant category.
Right.
I don't know if I would say that they are real water heavy plants. Even ivy geraniums, I mean,
Right.
they're not terribly water, they need a lot of water to grow.
But the South African species for sure are completely drought resistant. And if you go to geraniace.com, you can order directly from them, and a lot of the species that are drought resistant.
I think one of the best, because zonal geraniums and ivy geraniums always have a prime look. You know, they'll look good for this time, and then you got to kind of cut them back and then let them regrow.
Right.
A plant, though.
And then they have the heat problem too because they get budworms.
Yeah, they get the worms, right?
Yeah.
But a plant that I kind of feel looks good the most out of those is the Martha Washington ones. And that's more with a sharper edged leaf. For some reason, it's not always blooming as much as the other ones, but I feel like the plant always looks good.
Yeah, that's mainly a spring bloom,
Mhm.
right? It doesn't really bloom
Yeah.
through the rest of the year, which is why the plant always looks good. 'Cause they bloom before the worms get them.
Yeah. But, yeah, I think, there's a lot of good varieties that are drought resistant as far as geraniums go. What other questions do we have? Do we have more?
Okay, we got Carla's beet question.
Oh.
She's grown beets with success before, but this year the root is not developing. They're in barrels because nematodes were in the soil. Possible problems is soil mixed with planting mix, not thinned early enough, planted too shallow. See more. And not enough water. So she's suggesting those as possible problems for
why
they're not developing.
they're not developing.
Well, definitely need to be thinned,
Yeah.
or they're not going to develop. And they should be thinned to probably 2 to 3 finger spaces between each seedling, right?
Yeah, because otherwise, like you say, they're just not going to be able to grow out, or they bunch up and then they become all weird looking.
Right. And then, but this is the time of year where they're going to start. As the days get longer, they're going to start developing their tubers.
I was going to
more.
say, I feel like she's early, like,
Right.
in that sense, right? Like
Right.
I don't think that it's not developing right now, because when like these rooting vegetables grow,
Mm-hmm.
they obviously first germinate,
Right.
but they need to develop that foliage to develop that tuber.
Right.
And a lot of people think, oh, well, it's got this wonderful foliage on it, I expect the same thing to be happening underground. And it's not the same. It needs to develop that foliage to be able to develop that tuber. And then that tuber takes more time to actually grow. And when I say tuber, I mean just root. But carrots are always people are always going, oh, my carrots look beautiful from the top. But
Till
they
I
don't-
pulled it out.
Yeah, and it's a little carrot. Well, yeah, it had to do all that growing up top to get the energy and do all that stuff for the roots of the carrot down below, and you need to give it more time. And I think people rush it. So
Veronica wants to know if you're going to have dwarf indeterminate tomatoes for tomato mania.
yes, yeah. There's he is
Those are the super dwarfs.
yes.
Those what's the name of that project? The Dwarf Tomato Project.
And he went along with that, and they have a whole selection
Oh.
of new ones because that whole trend of dwarf tomatoes is taken off, and that was one of their focuses this year, was finding a whole bunch of new dwarf tomatoes and indeterminates.
That's a great reason to go to Tomato Mania, because most of those varieties are not going to be available at the box stores,
Nope.
only because
Right,
the
right.
seed sources are not readily available.
Right. And I mean, the box stores just focus on their, what's going to sell quick and grow quick and
Get 'em in,
easy to
get 'em
grow.
out.
And it's easier
Good luck.
for them to grow 5,000 of one thing and not worry about, everything else. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to read something I came across on our chat.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
How are we doing, John, otherwise?
Well, we had a question from Rick that wanted to know if you need to use different soil amendments for flowering plants. No. Just the soil should be the same no matter what you're growing in it.
Yeah, I mean, vegetables are flowering plants. and
Yeah.
Flowering plants are vegetables to the same degree of they're just producing different things. So they need the
Right.
same stuff. Yeah. I think where people needing different soil is more drainage situations. Some plants are going to not mind their roots being wet consistently, and so if the soil is not as well draining, that's not such a problem. And some plants like to dry out a little bit between waterings. And again, I talk to people about their waterings too, because some people are good waterers. And
Yeah.
like John can plant his roses and cactus mix and it's no big deal because he waters every day.
It's
But
probably better.
yeah, exactly. But not everybody does that. So they want something that retains moisture so they can skip a day or
Yeah,
so.
sure. They don't want to be out there every day.
Yeah, and,
Right.
and I think that's more where people get into difference in soils, is the draining aspect of it. Because John always talks about wanting a better. Happy Frog, drains real well.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not a Happy Frog. The plants that John gives me, I have to change the soil for me.
Otherwise,
because-
they dry out and
Yes,
die.
they dry out so quick because he uses such a very well draining mix.
We're going to take a break. We have 2 more segments coming up. Do stay with us. Plenty of time for your questions, your comments here. A lot of fun today as our listeners and viewers have taken us in many directions: tomatoes, beets, talking about grafting tomatoes, grafting this, grafting that. Who knows what's going to be happening next 2 segments? Do stay with us and find out as we take this break for our friends on Biz Talk Radio. Yes, indeed. We have hot mics, which means we're on the air. You can hear us. You can see us. We're happy to have you along. If you're new to the show, we say welcome. If you're, a longtime watcher, listener, we appreciate you just as well. And, again, Mission Hills Nursery, Tiger's got just about every tomato going on Tomato Mania, right? New varieties you mentioned last segment?
Yeah, next week they're all starting to come in. So you can call and check to see what varieties. We really won't know which varieties are there until we start to get the shipments, because sometimes, they want to ship us certain varieties, but the growers, maybe they're not to size. Maybe, that one didn't make the truck because of whatever reason. But, next Friday, they'll kind of be able to tell you what's coming in.
Mission Hills Nursery.
Yeah.
Located right here in San Diego.
One of the things that a little bit different than what we were talking about is a really cool front display. And John, it made me think of you, because John was describing this area of his hillside, and it was one corner where he was putting his Australian plants. But we got a bunch of leucadendrons in, and that's becoming such a popular plant now. And it's funny because I remember a while back, planting leucadendrons was difficult. A lot of varieties, you overwatered them. They never rooted real well. They didn't become established. But I feel like they're just somehow crossing them, and they're almost like becoming like a normal shrub now.
Really?
Yeah. So it's pretty neat to see the different colored foliage. Obviously, the flower on them is exciting.
Pincushion protea is a common name for those, right?
Is it? I don't know. I don't know. I always get them confused with proteas and pincushions. Yeah.
Well, they are. Leucadendrons are proteas. In the Proteaceae.
But proteas are, I feel, are even more difficult to grow.
The Protea genus, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are very difficult to grow.
Yeah.
That's why they're
the
such
feathery,
expensive flowers.
feathery plants, right?
Feathery.
I wanted to plant on that hill, but maybe that's not even a good area to put them. The soil might just be too heavy there.
Is that your down under area? Is that how you refer to it?
Well, I was going to be African and Australian mixed together.
So like when you're giving tours, you go from one to the other?
It's like Disneyland. Yeah. You go into Adventureland.
Right.
Frontierland. Got a tropical area.
Yeah.
I had when we were in England, Tiger, we saw a plant that I think might have been a type of genista. There was a tree, and it was blooming when we were there. And I got one of those mail ordered from, I think I got it from Oregon. I planted it in a pot, then raised it, and now it's 5 years later. I've been waiting for this thing to bloom. I put it in the ground in the tropical area right next to the Anisodontia you gave me. And we had all that rain, and then it looked like it was wilting. So I thought, did it get too much water?
Yeah.
And it gives about 6 feet tall now, 5-6 feet. And so I didn't water it because it had rained, and then it was wilting even more, so I put more water on it. And then went out there yesterday, and no roots at all. The gophers had gone through. And
oh, my gosh.
So I treated it like a rose where gophers that have eaten my roses before, I just pick it up, put it in a pot.
Yeah.
So this thing that would have been a 15-gallon plant is now in a 1-gallon pot. And hopefully it'll root again.
Hey, Keith in Point Loma wants to know if it's too early to put his ranunculite tubers in the ground.
Too early? No, it may be too late.
Uh-oh, Keith. Better do it today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hurry. Hurry.
Yeah,
Go.
usually you plant those in the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the ranunculus fields are going to be blooming pretty soon.
I think that they were talking about their opening day was like in the next week or two.
Really?
Yeah.
It seems a
Well,
little
let me
early.
rephrase that question.
By the way,
is
thanks.
it too late to put my ranunculite?
Oh, is it too late?
No, I'm saying that.
Oh.
He said too early. I just wanted to restate the question since it is almost too late, and he was concerned about it being too early.
Oh.
What were you going to say?
I was going to just thank Keith and Tiger for the cashmere cypress in my yard,
Oh.
which is probably about, could you say 12 feet tall now?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
10,
too.
12
And
feet.
it's right in the perfect spot that you put it.
Yeah,
Everything's working out well for that guy. Yeah.
I like it. And you've got some nice plants from Keith too, right? Didn't you have some clivia that he gave you?
Yeah, and you know what?
They should be
it's
budding up.
Oh, it's bloom. It's right now as we
Really?
speak. I went out yesterday. I went, wow.
Really?
It
That's
always
so
adds
cool.
every time, during this time period this year, I walk outside and there's color. Wow, look at you. For about 2 or 3 months.
Yeah. The ranunculus field's got me. There's a lot of articles right now also happening because, in Southern California, when we have good rain, we have our super blooms happening.
Right.
And there's a lot of people talking about now how in the past, people have gone out and run amok and really kind of destroyed the areas.
Right.
So they're protecting them a lot more. They're creating better paths and more security in the super bloom areas because, there's sensitive habitats. Definitely go out, enjoy it. I mean, and be a part of nature at its finest. But, take care. Be careful. Stay on a path.
Yeah, stay on a path. Stay in your lane.
Take a photo, but you don't need to be in it. In the field.
Why?
What?
I missed that.
What?
I missed
Well, people were just trampling through all the blooms of the fields of flowers, and they were just damaging everything, and just
It's like people who steal pins. You say, hey, leave the pins. Take only memories.
pins. People that steal pins.
Leave the pins. Take only memories.
You know what they do when they catch those people? Since you got a grown,
Go ahead.
they put them in a penitentiary.
Okay. Is that considered a dad joke, Tiger?
Yeah,
I think that is a
was
dad joke.
Pretty solid dad joke right there.
Boy, he was all proud of himself before he even told the joke.
It was some pre-laugh.
I got to get this one in there. I got to get this one in there.
Well, you had some groans
I know.
from your The Beat Goes On. So
I thought that was pretty good.
Patty wants to know the correct name of the ambrosia tomato.
Ambrosia.
I don't know. I know there's an ambrosia red, excuse me, an ambrosia gold.
Is there an ambrosia
cherry
salad
tomato.
too, right? Ambrosia salad?
Yeah.
In the group, ambrosia.
Right, so I'm not really sure what she's referring to.
Somebody may know.
Yeah. Or maybe.
Thank you, Veronica. Veronica said that. Ooh, so bad.
Good. See? She commented on mine as well.
We need to. I've told you this before too, but half the things that come into my mind I never say.
Well, it
And
didn't
it's a
used to
good
be
thing.
that way. A lot of those things would filter out.
Yeah.
I learned as I get older.
No, I have things that come in my mind. I go, no, I can fix this. The recording for Biz Talk Radio, if it comes out now, I can't stop it on Facebook.
No.
There's no
there.
way. If it
It's
comes out, it
there.
comes out. Probably get a nasty letter, threaten to take us off. We don't want that to happen to us.
Yeah. Exactly.
We were talking a little bit about tropicals. I mentioned I
Yeah.
have a tropical hill. That's something else to be really careful of if you're in Southern California. You don't have to worry if you're in northern climates because you would never put a tropical outside. But, down here, everybody wants, you get bougainvillea in bloom, hibiscus in bloom, and it's probably better to wait just a little bit longer.
It's hard to wait in this climate when it looks so
Well,
close
especially
to...
when you have, almost 80-degree temperatures, the last couple days.
go outside, you go, it's nice. Can I maybe just try it?
Yeah.
And then the other thing along with that is the tropicals fertilizing them. Definitely don't fertilize
Oh,
them.
yeah, absolutely.
Because all that brand new, beautiful growth that you encourage when it does warm up, it's got that great watering right now with the rain. if we do get, like you mentioned, this weekend, those really cold days,
Right.
that's the first part that burns from cold. And so, just let them, all my bananas plants, they're all getting shredded and they don't look
my
very
banana
good.
plants look terrible.
But I don't do anything right now because it's supposed to be that way right now. So,
Yeah, they look bad.
Yeah.
Even evergreen trees in general probably don't fertilize right now. Citrus,
Yeah.
you don't want to encourage new growth on citrus.
Just pulled our last citrus off this last week.
Did you?
Yep.
Nice.
That was your
So tasty.
gold nugget.
Gold nugget. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. A good, decent crop. Had bigger crops. Seen better, seen worse. This was a good one.
People from the Rose Society came out to my house a couple days last week.
Oh, the yearly inspection. How did that go?
Well, they came out and pruned the roses in the Hybridica and Floribunda collection. And our friend Becky had gone to Temecula and got some mandarins that were called Temecula Sweet or
Oh.
Temecula Gold. And she said it's the only place in the world that you can get them. I had never heard of them before.
Yeah.
That's the name, I guess, right?
Yeah, and she said that there was a gentleman that came from Asia, Vietnam maybe, and had crossed an Asian citrus with an orange and then crossed that with a mandarin.
Ooh.
And
There
they
you
were
go.
really good. They looked a little bit like the sumo mandarins.
Okay. A little squatty.
Right. And kind of
Easy to peel or no?
very easy to peel.
Nice.
Yeah.
Gotta take a
that's
break.
The selling point
It's like
for
you
me.
push the button and the whole thing just pops open, ready to eat.
We have one more segment. This break is for our friends, of course, as always, on Biz Talk Radio. For the rest of you on Facebook, I'd say after we come back from the break, we've got about 7 minutes for your last-minute questions, comments, whatever is on your mind. Do stay with us. Again, Brian Main, John Begnasker, Tiger Palafox, each and every week right here, broadcasting from the iHeart Media and Entertainment Studios in San Diego. This is Garden America. All righty, we have made it final segment. Been a good show as far as the pacing, and
Yeah.
we've talked about a lot of things. Gone in directions we weren't aware that we would be going into, but we did, thanks to our listeners, our viewers, those of you who keep us on the air.
Good pace. Good
Good
beat.
pace, I think so. The
Good
beat still goes on, Tiger. Yes, no matter what.
I planted just speaking of citrus reminded me of this, but I planted a rose yesterday called Eureka Lemon.
Ooh.
Isn't that a weird name for a rose?
Yeah, exactly. I
People
mean,
confused.
Yeah. and
is it
do-
yellow?
Do you know what color would you think it is?
I would think yellow.
It's a deep pink.
And so can you find out the origins of these names, like who named it, the history?
Yes. You know why? It was a found rose.
Oh,
And the-
Eureka.
And the person who found it near a Eureka lemon.
Oh,
So it just, I guess, to
Okay.
name the source or remind them of the source, it was just called Eureka Lemon. Also planted a rose called Abbott and Burns,
you had me going there for a second.
or Burns and Abbott.
Okay, a combination of two comedy teams.
No, it was a combination of two pioneer families that came out to California and brought this rose with them in the 1800s. So it's a little miniature type rose,
You
which
should-
I thought was kind of cool.
You should find a rose that has, that just produces different colored flowers on the plant.
Like surprise, surprise.
Yeah, and you can call it the Hatfields and the McCoys, right? Two battling families. That'd be a fun one.
Do you remember the?
Yeah.
Now that you're getting into
Let me
this,
get back to you next week on that one, Tiger. I need a week to think about that
do you remember
one.
the War of the Roses, Brian?
Yes.
Not the movie with
Not the War of the
Michael
Worlds.
Douglas. Was the two houses, York and Lancaster, and one had a white rose, the other had a red rose, and they fought back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But the red rose was the emblem of one house, the white the emblem of another house. And there's a variegated rose that's white and red old garden rose called York and Lancaster.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
There it is.
Now, when you said Abbott, I thought Abbott and Costello, and then you said Abbott and
Burns.
and I'm thinking,
George Burns.
yeah, you took me in a
Gracie
whole
Allen, Abbott and Costello.
different direction.
Yeah. Hey, I know this is on a different subject.
Now
but
we've gone a lot
we've
of
been
different
talking
areas.
about edibles, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And in the newsletter, there was a little article about the cabbage tree. And the cabbage tree has leaves that are edible. And I thought this was interesting because it is only native to one tiny island in the whole world. And it's the island that the real Robinson Crusoe was marooned on. And when he was there, he ate the cabbage tree to help sustain him because it
What
was
is the
an
name of the island?
uninhabited island. It's one of the Juan Fernandez Islands.
Oh, that's
in,
right.
in
yeah.
the Southeast Pacific. So anyway, when he was rescued, they brought goats to the island. And the thinking is if anyone ever gets marooned here again, there'll be goats for them to eat. And the
or milk, either way, right?
Yeah, and the goats, of course, ate all the cabbage trees. So a few years ago, there were only 3 left. So there were only 3 of these trees left in the world. Fortunately, they grow easily from seed. Somebody collected the seed. And now if you go to Annie's Annuals, you can buy a plant.
How about that?
And I got one last summer, planted it on my Tropicals Hill. But they're real easy to grow. They don't like really hot temperatures. So if you're along the coast, that's a great place to put them. It's got really big, kind of rubbery leaves.
Which is why they did so well on the island.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the
Yeah.
conditions, right?
Yeah. Perfect. So,
Kind of cool flower.
yeah, it's interesting. The leaves, though, are the nicest part about it, I think. They do great up in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They like that long season,
Yeah.
cool. Damp.
Right. So San Diego area, they'd be really good.
Coldest winter I ever spent was in San Francisco.
One summer in San Francisco. That was Mark Twain,
Mark
right?
Twain, right?
Yeah. He had another quote that I just read this week. Well, it might come to me before the end of the show.
Did we answer all the
Lenore
questions?
mentioned that the Juan Fernandez Islands are right across from Chile,
Chile. Yes.
which
Which
Lenore-
now the Galapagos are west.
Ecuador.
Right.
Right.
West, right of that.
We were going to take a trip to the Galapagos.
Yeah, and I've watched a lot of documentaries lately
Mhm.
on that whole area, the different boats, the tours that go out there, the fishing, just the life, the abundance of life and birds. It's just amazing.
Really? Isn't there a hotel on one of the islands now
I'm
that
not
you can
sure.
stay at? I'm not sure.
But if you're into all that, being able to
Yeah.
see things that you can't see anyplace else in the world,
The turtle soup when you go over there is
Fantastic.
delicious. Yeah.
fantastic.
You guys.
Aged too.
Oh,
Oh, look at-
Poor
Aw,
turtles.
Poor little turtle.
poor turtle.
I think the oldest land animal in the world is a tortoise that's 170 years old or something like that.
I heard of one closing in on 200. Maybe when you heard about it, it was 20 years ago.
Could have been.
When you heard about it.
It's double the age of Dick Van Dyke, right?
Oh, good.
96.
Still
We
out
got about
there.
a minute, I think. Yeah, exactly a minute till we have to say our goodbyes.
What are you going to do today in
I've
the
got
garden?
I've got
You
Aaron.
going to water or no?
No, I'm not going to water. No, especially after what we talked about with the hibiscus.
Yeah.
I have to sweep the patio. It's getting a little dirty. Again, the doves are back. They made a nest in one of my hanging plants. I think
You
it's the
posted
same
a picture
pair.
of that, didn't you?
Last year I did. She's back, and they have no fear of us. Back and forth in the patio, working, watering. They look down, I look up. How you doing? We're here.
Yeah.
You're not going to hurt us.
It's a good little spot they have.
Good. It's covered and protected.
Yep.
Lila wants to know if it's too hot and powy for the cabbage tree.
Make it quick. Your answer, John.
All right. Maybe. But, if you can get it where it'll be shaded from the hot afternoon sun, it would probably be okay because I'm growing it in Fallbrook, and I had it where it's part shaded and it's thriving.
All right, that's going to do it. Thank you. Wow. A lot of people tuned in this morning, those on Facebook Live. Excellent questions. We're going to do it again next week. We really appreciate you tuning in. Those on Biz Talk Radio, thank you for your support as well. For the entire crew, I'm Brian Main, John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox, our web guy, Daniel. Thank you. We'll do it again next weekend. Have a great weekend, a good week coming up, and again, next Saturday right here on Garden America. Take care.